When most people think of growing a garden, they imagine rows of lettuce, tomatoes, and cucumbers. But here's the truth: big gardening companies don't want you to know. You plant them, harvest, and then the cycle ends. Next year, you have to start all over again, spending time, money, and energy just to keep food on the table. Those crops make you dependent. They force you into the cycle of buying new seeds and starting fresh every year. Now imagine walking into your garden every season, year after year, and finding food waiting for you without having to dig, replant, or buy more seeds. Just picture it: fresh, nutritious crops that keep coming back on their own, like nature's endless pantry. They're like nature's investment account: put in a little work up front, and you get endless returns year after year. Today, I'm going to share with you something truly powerful: 10 incredible perennial crops that you can plant once and harvest forever. These plants are game changers. They're not only perfect for backyard gardeners, but also for anyone interested in self-sufficiency, homesteading, survival prepping, food security, or simply saving money at the grocery store. This is the kind of gardening knowledge that can literally change your life wherever you are. These perennial crops adapt to a wide range of climates. They've been grown for centuries, even millennia, by people who understood the value of planting once and harvesting forever. And in times like these, when global uncertainty, climate change, and food shortages dominate the news, what could be more valuable than food you don't have to keep replanting? Now let's talk about why this video is so important for you right now. If you've been following global events, you've seen how fragile the food system really is. Grocery shelves go empty in a matter of hours when there's panic. Prices climb higher every month, and wages don't keep up. Add in natural disasters, droughts, and wars, and suddenly, food security isn't just a buzzword, it's survival. People everywhere are asking, what can I do to protect my family? How can I make sure we'll always have food, no matter what? So grab a notebook, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with someone you care about, because this knowledge is too important to keep to yourself. You don't want to be the person standing in an empty grocery aisle wishing you had planted something last year. You want to be the one who's already harvesting, already secure, already prepared. And trust me, once you hear about these 10 perennial crops, you're going to see why so many survivalists, homesteaders, and even everyday families are turning to them. This is gardening that pays you back forever. Let's dive in, because the sooner you plant these crops, the sooner you'll reap the rewards. One of the first that comes to mind is asparagus. This ancient crop has been cultivated for thousands of years, valued not only for its flavor but also for its resilience. You plant it once, usually from crowns, and while you may have to wait a couple of years before the first true harvest, what follows is remarkable. For 20 or even 30 years, asparagus will push through the soil each spring with tender green shoots ready for the table. It's rich in vitamins, fiber, and antioxidants, and has been part of cuisines from Europe to Asia for centuries. Imagine never having to buy asparagus again, just stepping outside every spring to cut fresh spears straight from the earth. But asparagus isn't alone. Another perennial that's equally impressive, though very different in taste and use, is rhubarb. Known for its tart stalks that end up in pies, jams, and sauces, rhubarb thrives in cooler climates. Once it's in the ground, it can last 8 to 15 years with little more than occasional division to keep it healthy. The stalks provide a burst of flavor when little else is ready to harvest in early spring, and while its leaves are toxic and must be avoided, the stalks themselves are packed with nutrients and antioxidants. People around the world use rhubarb not only for food but also for its traditional medicinal properties, making it both a culinary and a survival plant. If you've ever worried about food that practically grows itself, Jerusalem artichokes or sunchokes might surprise you. They're relatives of sunflowers, producing knobby tubers underground that resemble potatoes. Once you plant them, they're nearly impossible to get rid of, because any small piece of tuber left in the soil grows back the next season. That might sound like a problem, but in survival gardening, it's a blessing. They can handle drought, poor soil, and neglect, yet still produce a starchy, nutty-flavored food rich in fiber, potassium, and iron. In fact, their inulin content makes them excellent for gut health. Roasted, boiled, or eaten raw, Jerusalem artichokes can become a staple crop that requires no replanting, no pampering, and no worry. Plant once, harvest forever. On the spicier side of things, horseradish deserves mention. Known for its fiery flavor that clears sinuses in seconds, horseradish is one of the hardiest roots you can grow. Stick a root cutting in the ground, and it will come back year after year, spreading as it goes. The roots can be dug in spring or fall, and any piece you leave behind will regenerate into a new plant. That means you'll never run out. Horseradish is not only a flavor powerhouse in sauces and pickles, but it also has antimicrobial properties that have been valued in traditional medicine for generations. It's the kind of plant that thrives on neglect and rewards you endlessly. Now, speaking of plants that don't need much babysitting, let's talk about walking onions, sometimes called Egyptian onions. They're fascinating because instead of producing flowers at the top, they grow clusters of small bulbs that eventually bend over and plant themselves, literally walking across your garden. This self-replicating nature makes them a gardener's dream. You get green tops like scallions, underground bulbs like regular onions, and little bulbils for replanting or eating. Once you've got walking onions, you've essentially got onions forever. And since onions are a base ingredient in so many meals, having a perpetual supply is priceless. Another plant that deserves more attention than it gets is sorrel, also known as spinach dock and narrow-leaved dock. If you've never tasted it, sorrel is a leafy green with a lemony tang, refreshing and sharp. It's one of the first greens to appear in spring and one of the last to fade in fall, making it incredibly valuable for fresh eating when other crops aren't available. Sorrel has been used in French soups, sauces, and salads for centuries, and it's incredibly easy to grow. Once established, it comes back year after year with little fuss. Nutritionally, it's loaded with vitamin C and iron, making it not just a tasty green but also a powerful boost to your immune system. For those who like herbs and garnishes, chives are perhaps the easiest perennial to grow. You plant them once, and they'll keep clumping and spreading, offering fresh onion-flavored greens every time you snip them. Their purple flowers are also edible and make stunning additions to salads. Beyond the kitchen, chives are natural pest repellents, keeping harmful insects away from other crops while attracting pollinators with their blooms. They're beautiful, functional, and nearly indestructible. If you want something a little more exotic but deeply rewarding, ramps, also called wild leeks, are worth mentioning. They grow in shady woodlands and have a flavor that's a perfect blend of onion and garlic. In North America, ramps are so prized that festivals are dedicated to them. Unfortunately, wild ramps have been over-harvested, so the best approach is to cultivate them at home. They take time to establish, but once they do, they return year after year. Both the leaves and bulbs are edible, and they can be pickled, sautéed, or added to soups for an unforgettable flavor. Now, if you've never heard of it, Good King Henry is an old European perennial green that was once a staple but has largely fallen out of favor. It's sometimes called poor man's asparagus because its young shoots are eaten just like asparagus spears. The leaves, meanwhile, are cooked like spinach. For survival gardening, this plant is a hidden treasure. It's hardy, nutritious, and low maintenance, offering a double harvest of greens and shoots without needing yearly planting. Rediscovering crops like this can diversify your diet while securing your food supply. Finally, let's talk about a true superfood that doesn't need replanting, perennial kale. Unlike the kale you see in grocery stores, which is usually annual or biennial, certain varieties like Dobbinton's kale can live for decades. You simply harvest leaves as you need them, and the plant keeps regenerating. Kale is one of the most nutrient-dense vegetables available, rich in vitamins K, C, calcium, and antioxidants. Having a perennial kale in your garden means endless smoothies, stir-fries, soups, and salads without ever having to buy seeds again. And here's the big picture: when you combine these crops, the asparagus, rhubarb, Jerusalem artichokes, horseradish, walking onions, sorrel, chives, ramps, good King Henry, and perennial kale, you create a food system that works with nature. Instead of constant replanting, you establish a foundation of crops that keep producing, season after season. They provide nutrition, flavor, and security in ways annual crops simply can't. These are the hidden gems of the gardening world. They're low maintenance, incredibly resilient, and many of them produce food for decades. Some of them will outlive you, feeding not just you but your children for salads, spicy horseradish root for flavor, or nutrient-rich kale available year-round. Imagine being able to walk into your backyard and pick onions, greens, or roots without even opening your wallet. That's the kind of abundance perennial gardening offers. And I'm not just talking theory here, this works. Around the world, homesteaders, preppers, and gardeners have turned to perennial crops because they deliver results. They don't just reduce your workload, they actually give you more food security than annual gardens ever could. They restore soil health, attract pollinators, fight erosion, and create a food system that works with nature instead of against it. So don't wait, think, I'll do it next year. Start now. Even if it's just one perennial, you're starting the journey toward food security and independence. Plant these crops once, and they'll reward you forever. And in a world where uncertainty is the only certainty, that's worth more than gold, because at the end of the day, this isn't about gardening trends. It's about making sure you and your loved ones are fed, healthy, and free. Plant once, harvest forever. Build your legacy in the soil and let nature take care of the rest. If you find this video valuable, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Mary's Pot for more food security tips, survival gardening secrets, sustainable living content, and amazing recipes.